This is one of the most well-known roguelikes on mobile, but is it the best one out there? Today I'm gonna share what I consider to be some of the greatest traditional roguelikes with turn-based combat, some of which are very popular already, but others that I consider to be hidden gems of the genre on mobile. And if you guys like the video, I'll make a part 2 and 3 later on as well with the best action-driven and card-based roguelikes. So be sure to subscribe to stay notified about those videos, and now let's dive straight into today's first game, the highly popular Shattered Pixel Dungeon. This game actually originally started off as a mod for another game called Pixel Dungeon before becoming a standalone title, and it's a tough roguelike dungeon crawler RPG with lots of quests to complete, items to gather, and monsters to defeat. One of the best aspects of Shattered Pixel Dungeon is that we have 4 unique character classes to play as, each of which come with unique subclass specializations that ensures a high level of replayability. I gotta warn you though, the bosses in this game are truly challenging, so you gotta be prepared to die a lot as you attempt to make your way through the 5 dungeon floors. The game is pretty much already a classic on mobile, and it is one of the best overall roguelikes that is completely free to play with no ads and no in-app purchases. And despite the high difficulty, it's actually also rather beginner friendly, so definitely take it for a spin if you haven't already. Also, if you want to find more roguelikes but you have specific criteria like it has to be offline playable or it has to be played in landscape mode, my games discovery platform MiniReview is hopefully perfect for that. In fact, I made much of this video by sorting and filtering MiniReview to find the highest rated roguelike. So check it out if you haven't already, I hope you'll like it, and now onto the next game. Redungeon is an endless dungeon crawler by Nightrome with an awesome retro arcade atmosphere, fast-paced gameplay, and a variety of heroes to play as. The game's fun core gameplay loop essentially has us collect coins through procedurally generated dungeons while avoiding obstacles and escaping monsters to unlock and upgrade all 11 heroes. Now, since each of these heroes have unique abilities that impact the gameplay and new mechanics that require us to really think fast are introduced in each dungeon floor, the game is addictively fun and it does an excellent job at never growing too repetitive. Redungeon is free to play, and while we can pay to instantly unlock and upgrade all heroes, it really doesn't take too long to also grind them through gameplay, creating a great experience for free players. Next up is a game called Pathos NetHack Codex, which I saw one user on MiniReview refer to as an easy intro to the world of proper roguelikes, and honestly, I couldn't agree more, because this is a challenging roguelike inspired by the 1987 game NetHack, where we begin by creating our own custom class based on a list of options, and then we jump straight into the first dungeon floor where we try to get as far as possible before dying. Now, in these dungeons, we'll find lots of enemies that we can simply tap to attack, but to survive, it's often much better to actually avoid combat whenever possible. But maybe the best part of Pathos is that each dungeon floor is full of a large variety of weapons, spells, and consumables that are locked in chests, hidden behind traps, or dropped by enemies, which gives the game a real exploration feeling, and I really like that. There truly is just a ton of content and items to explore in this game, and it is also completely free to play without ads or any in-app purchases, which is why I think it easily deserves a spot here. But if you are more interested in a straight-up premium game, you might want to check out the Enchanted Cave 2, which stands out because once we delve into a dungeon in this game, we can only leave if we find a pair of escape wings, which allows us to keep any artifacts and gold we've gathered. Now, before we even jump into our first dungeon in this game, we have to select one of 9 playable characters, but where it gets really interesting is that once we level up, we can then distribute skill points to customize our character across a large skill tree that branches into warrior, mage, and alchemist skills and bonuses. True to the name of this game, crafting is also super important in the Enchanted Cave 2, as it allows us to, for example, enchant armor with protection against ice attacks. And as we continuously enter new dungeon floors with different biomes and monsters, it's critical to keep enchanting our gear with protection against the elements used by the monsters roaming these biomes. So that could be fire attacks, for example, in the next dungeon. The game will set you back $5.99 on both Android and iOS, but it's an easy recommendation if you're looking for something that is traditional, yet a bit more fast-paced and action-driven than most other games mentioned today. The next game is Hoplite, and it's a turn-based roguelike with tactical combat and a simple core gameplay mixed with a painstakingly high difficulty level. Played on a hexagon-tiled map that we move around one step at a time, the objective is to get to the end of the floor by taking out all opponents using our spear, knocking back bombs with our shield, and jumping to avoid incoming attacks. Once we have hopefully successfully dealt with all of that and we reach the end of a floor, we get to pick one upgrade that lasts until we die, and we then continue to the next floor. Hoplite is free to try on Android, and the full game then unlocks for the same $3 price that the game costs on iOS. It's an easy recommendation that takes some serious brainpower to complete, and its gameplay even scored a 9 out of 10 over on MiniReview, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. And as a quick bonus game, if you already played and enjoyed Hoplite, you might also want to check out Enyo, which has a bit of that same overall gameplay feel. Next up, I wanted to include a game that I can almost guarantee you haven't played yet, because this is a fairly new and unknown indie game called Twilight Dungeons, whose unique take on the genre has us attempt to survive a truly strange world by learning about and utilizing its many flora and fauna to our advantage. And yes, you heard that right. The core gameplay in this game involves searching for harvestable plants that we can then use to craft items and equipment, and maybe most interesting of all, we can even plant seed to grow, harvest, and create more plants, giving the game a unique survival-like feel. This is really only scratching the surface though, because there's a lot more to this game and its many systems, and it's entirely free without ads or in-app purchases, and it's available on both Android and iOS, so this is a must-try if you like strange worlds and unique roguelike gameplay. Now, if you're a fan of the sci-fi theme and genre, you might also want to check out There Omega Edition, which is an RPG adventure game that mixes in some exploration and roguelike elements such as a procedurally generated universe. So the core gameplay in Out There is all about keeping our crew alive by managing our fuel, oxygen, and the hull of our spaceship, which are resources that we find as we travel from planet to planet. And the further we travel into this seemingly endless space, the more events and random encounters we meet, and the decisions we make during these often significantly impact the rest of our run. Out There Omega Edition costs $4.99 on both Android and iOS, and although it is very hardcore and difficult, it's also highly replayable, and while it may not be as traditional a roguelike as some of the other games mentioned here today, there is a high chance that you'll enjoy it if you like old school roguelikes and sci-fi. One of the better free-to-play roguelikes around is definitely Rust Bucket though, which has us study enemy movement patterns so we can avoid their attacks and land our own, which is an incredibly important lesson as we die in just a single hit in this game. The game features 40 puzzle-like levels and then an endless mode, and while it is turn-based, the experience feels relatively fast-paced, making it a great casual roguelike for short play sessions. Rust Bucket monetizes through showing advertisements when we die, but we can remove these through in-app purchases up to $3.99, which is a great relaxed way to do monetization in my opinion, and that is why it deserves a mention here. But now, my friends, let's move from the casual and colorful to the truly old school and hardcore, because WazHack is a side-scrolling roguelike inspired by NetHack, that same 1987 game that Pathos NetHack Codex was also based on. What this means for the gameplay is essentially that every run features a procedurally generated dungeon, loot needs to be identified before we can equip it, and it takes a lot of attempts to finish this game. Like in any great roguelike, there's a bunch of character classes to pick from, each with unique stats and equipment, and the game even features both single-player and co-op dungeons full of traps and enemies. One of the most interesting aspects of WazHack's combat system though is that ranged attacks actually have to be aimed in this game, since they're affected by gravity, which creates a much more advanced combat experience than that found in most other roguelikes. WazHack is free to try on both Android and iOS, after which we have to pay $1 per class we want to permanently unlock, and it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't tried it already. Next up is Cardinal Quest 2, a truly retro turn-based roguelike where our goal is to fight our way through 3 acts while we level up our skills to the point that we can finally defeat the boss at the end of the game. Now, one of the great things about Cardinal Quest is that we can either swipe or tap to move around the map, and then simply bump into enemies to attack them, which makes the game easy to navigate even on small smartphone screens. It also features a bunch of character classes that drastically change the gameplay and add a high level of replayability, and these can be unlocked for free through gameplay or instantly acquired through a few in-app purchases, which is the only way the game monetizes. And I think it's also worth highlighting that Cardinal Quest currently sits at a 4.9 out of 5 score on the App Store, and it has a 100% user rating score on mini review, so you might just want to take it for a spin if you haven't played it before. So there you have it, 10 great traditional roguelikes that I think are all worth checking out, but let me know if you agree or which games I forgot to mention in the comment section down below, and then until next time, just keep gaming, stay awesome, and I'll see you guys around.